You are not their first choice. You never were. Maybe they lied to you. Maybe you believed it. But if you ever thought that kindness was enough, that stability was attractive, that understanding opened doors to a woman's heart, then it's because you haven't truly understood how attraction really works. And the most ironic part is that you see it every day. You sense it when she ignores the one who listens to her and goes out of their way for the one who mistreats her. You feel it when, despite your effort, she always chooses someone else. Someone who doesn't take care of her. Someone who doesn't protect her. Someone who isn't there. Arthur Schopenhauer, the philosopher of disenchantment, had already noticed this over a century ago. In his brutal diagnosis of human nature, he spoke of women as beings deeply guided by instinct, not by logic, not by morality, not by virtue, but by something much older, more primitive, more brutal. And here comes the beast, the man who doesn't ask for permission, who doesn't explain, who doesn't beg, who simply takes the place others fear to occupy. Does it hurt to hear this? It should. Because the world you were sold is a lie. Because they told you repeatedly that being good was enough, that being thoughtful, attentive, sensitive was all it took. But you forgot one fundamental truth. A woman doesn't love with her head. She loves with her gut, with her body, with chaos. And in that chaos, the virtuous man gets in the way. The predictable man bores. The noble man becomes invisible. Look around you. Observe the stories that repeat themselves, the songs they sing, the books they read. The pattern is always the same. The dark man, the tormented one, the one who dominates the room with a look, the one who disappears for 3 days and comes back without explanations. Why? Because he awakens something they can't control, because he activates the oldest part of their brain, the one that doesn't understand reasons, but reacts to strength, to danger, to drama. The man who makes them cry has them. The one who comforts them loses them. And no, this isn't a call to become a monster. It's an invitation to understand that if you don't master your own shadows, they won't see your light. Because light without darkness is boring, because balance without risk is predictable, and the predictable does not make them fall in love. Schopenhauer said it bluntly. Woman is more instinctive than rational, more prone to the emotional than to the spiritual. And although many want to cancel the philosopher, few dare to contradict what we all see. Romanticism has lied. It has sold you the idea that true love is sweet, patient, serene. But the reality is different. Deep inside their psyche, many modern women want to be shaken, not understood. They want intensity, not stability. They want to feel that they could lose everything at any moment, because that's what keeps them alive. And here comes the big conflict. The modern man has been domesticated, trained to ask for permission, to apologize for existing, to repress his impulse, his strength, his instinct. Meanwhile, they look for desire and end up choosing the one who doesn't apologize, the one who doesn't stop, the one who isn't afraid. The paradox is brutal. In an era of equality, many women still feel a visceral attraction toward dominance. Not toward tyranny, but toward the imposing, what they can't control. And you, the one who listens, who waits, who believes that being more understanding will make you more loved, you are being left behind. Not because you're bad, but because you awaken nothing, because you don't activate chaos, because you are not the beast. Don't confuse this. It's not cruelty they seek. It's intensity. It's not abuse, it's fire. It's not destruction, it's danger. The kind of danger that makes them feel alive. That takes them out of routine. That puts them face to face with the abyss. Have you seen a woman in love with a man who ignores her? Who makes her doubt? Who is never fully available? That's not a system error. It's a biological manifestation. Desire is born from mystery. Passion doesn't live in certainty, but in uncertainty. The problem is that the man who wants to give everything loses, because he doesn't understand that love is not about unconditional surrender. It's about courage, about position, about impact. And that impact, many times, only the beast achieves. And it's not that all women want to be mistreated. Number. But many are attracted to the profile that does not submit, that doesn't need validation, that has a life so full it doesn't empty for anyone. Evolutionary psychology has studied this for years. The female sexual selection instinct tends toward power, toward status, toward emotional dominance, not toward docility, not toward conformity, not toward tenderness without direction. The woman tests. She pushes limits, and only gives herself to the one who doesn't waver. The one who isn't moved by her whims. The one who, even when he loses her, doesn't lose his center. And that center is not built from external validation. It is built from the brutal certainty that you don't need to be loved to be valuable, from the coldness that is not indifference, but control. Harsh? Yes. Unfair? Maybe. But it's real. And if you don't learn the rules of the game, you will continue being the emotional wild card, the shoulder to cry on, the friend she never sleeps with. The man who conquers is not the one who offers security. He is the one who provokes insecurity, not because he enjoys it, but because he is not afraid to lose. And that absence of fear is magnetic, that contained coldness makes one fall in love. We live in an era where everyone shouts for equality, but deep down, impulses haven't changed. You can fill your social media with phrases about mutual respect, but at night, in solitude, many hearts still beat for those who don't look at them. And that should make you reflect. Because maybe it's not about changing who you are, but about recovering what you lost. Your edge, your strength, your ability to say no without fear, to walk away without looking back, to stop seeking to be chosen and start choosing. Schopenhauer didn't write to please. He wrote to awaken. And if his words hurt, it's because they are still necessary, because they still touch strings we prefer to ignore, because we keep believing sweetness is the key, when many times it is the sentence. Women don't want princes. They want monsters they can control, but who won't be completely tamed. They want to feel that if they cross the line, there are consequences, that if they play with fire, they might burn. And that's what keeps them awake, alert, trapped. The good man, on the other hand, doesn't set limits, doesn't impose respect, doesn't create tension, and in that void, he disappears. You have to stop apologizing for being strong, for being firm, for not giving in. Because in that firmness there is a magnetism that can't be faked. There is a presence that asserts itself without shouting. There is a darkness that doesn't destroy, but fascinates. The beast is not an abuser. He is a man who is not afraid of his shadow, who doesn't hide it, who integrates it, who knows that being dangerous is not a flaw, but a virtue, when you know how to control it. And that ability to control everything, even yourself, is what makes the difference. You have to decide what kind of man you want to be. The one who waits to be loved for his kindness, or the one who is loved for the strength he projects. Because the truth, as painful as it is this. Many women don't want peace. They want war, an emotional war that makes them feel alive. And if you can't offer that battlefield, they will look for another soldier. The good news is that you can awaken. You can stop begging for attention. You can start building yourself from the rock, not from the sand. You can become the storm that no one dares to ignore. But for that, you have to kill the good boy who seeks approval. You have to bury the man who waits to be seen, and be reborn as the one who no longer needs to be chosen, because he has learned to choose. And that, my friend, is the kind of man they can't let go of. Not because he pleases them, but because he confronts them. Because he shows them what they are, what they fear, what they desire, and what they will never fully control. That is the secret. That is the game. And you decide if you keep waiting outside the board or become the piece that changes everything. Because at the end of the day, it's not that women prefer beasts. It's that beasts are the only ones who manage to awaken them. But there is something we haven't touched yet. Something that explains why, even when a woman has been hurt by the beast, she keeps coming back. A subterranean force that shapes her decisions without her noticing. Let's talk about trauma as an emotional anchor, because attraction is not always rational. Often it is a direct consequence of the past. Many women who grew up with emotionally absent, unpredictable, or dominant figures during childhood find an unconscious familiarity in those men who today make them suffer. It's not that they don't see the damage, it's that the damage is recognizable to them, and the recognizable gets confused with the desirable. Here comes a brutal psychological concept: trauma bonding. When a person alternates intermittently between affection and rejection, the brain starts associating pain with love, like an emotional addiction. The reward system becomes dysfunctional, and then disdain becomes the fuel for desire. This phenomenon explains why a woman can leave a man who offers stability and tenderness to return to another who makes her cry. Not because she wants to suffer, but because her nervous system has been wired to interpret tension as passion. And this is something few men understand. They think that if they show that they would never hurt, they will win her heart. But that message, in certain cases, doesn't awaken any internal echo. It doesn't generate friction, nor drive, nor intensity. It's like trying to start a fire with water. The man who dominates emotionally is not always the most physically attractive, nor the smartest, nor the most successful. But he is the one who has learned to maintain the exact distance, to not be fully reached. He is there, but not entirely. He talks, but doesn't surrender. He touches, but doesn't merge, and that makes him addictive. Because in the mind of many women, love is struggle, it's tension, it's conquest. It's not calm, it's not rest. That's why when they find calm, they confuse it with boredom. When they find rest, they feel they are losing something. Now let's go to another level, the symbolic. Jung spoke of the anima and the animus, the archetypal representations of the feminine and masculine within each one. And in that archetypal dance, the woman unconsciously looks not for the perfect man, but for the one who embodies her shadow, the one who confronts her with what she doesn't dare to look at. The beast is that. A dark mirror, not the ideal, but the abyss. And that's why they desire him, because by approaching him, they feel they can touch their own limit, play with the edge, challenge themselves, test how far they can go without breaking. But here is the most disturbing part. Many times it's not love they seek, but validation. The validation they didn't receive before. So they choose the unreachable, the hurtful, the emotionally overwhelmed, hoping that someday he will choose them. Because if that man, the one who doesn't need anyone, decides to stay, then they feel they are worth something. And what happens to you, the man who is willing to stay? You don't represent the challenge. You don't embody redemption. You are not the prize. You are the consolation. And that, in trauma-conditioned female psychology, is rarely attractive. That's why it's so common for women to say, "I like bad boys, I don't know why." It's not magic. It's emotional programming. It's badly digested biography. It's a limbic system that seeks intensity because it associates love with adrenaline. And here is where men lose more than their dignity. They lose their time. They chase women trapped in cycles they can't break from the outside. They try to compete with the shadow, without understanding that the shadow is not defeated with flowers. The only way to stop being invisible is not to shout louder. It's to understand the dance, to learn to have an edge, to not give away your attention, to not beg. Because when you stop being unconditionally available, you become an enigma. Mystery is the antidote to boredom. And the man who doesn't give everything at once becomes fascinating, not because he plays, but because he has control, because he knows his worth, because he doesn't need to be chosen to feel he exists. And that's where you come in, if you decide to change. Not by imitating the beast from cruelty, but by learning from his power without letting it consume you. Darkness is not the enemy. It is a tool, and the complete man is the one who can use both light and shadow depending on the moment. Do you want to truly attract? Be an ordered chaos, a contained fire, a storm that knows exactly when to unleash itself. Don't be afraid to seem cold. Ice sometimes seduces more than heat, because ice freezes what fire only burns. Women don't want security if that means routine. They don't want promises if they come wrapped in desperation. What they want, often without admitting it, is someone who takes them out of their own labyrinth. Someone who doesn't enter to rescue them, but who watches them from outside without giving in. And if you can't be that man, someone else will. And you won't be the one filling their bed, nor their mind, nor their body. You will be the memory of the one who tried everything, without provoking anything. So now it's your turn to decide. Keep being the good man who waits his turn, or become the man who waits for no one because he knows that whoever dominates his life dominates the desire of others. And that man, the one who doesn't need to be loved to feel enough, is the one who ends up being loved above all others. Because when you don't beg, you become the only thing they can't control, and the uncontrollable is irresistible. And now listen to me carefully, because we are arriving at the place where many get off the train, just before seeing the whole tunnel. This is the point where you either open your eyes or close them forever, because what comes next isn't comfortable. It's not pretty, but it is the naked truth, the one no one wants to tell you. Modern love is not a fairy tale. It's an emotional battlefield where the weak don't survive. Do you know what's the most heartbreaking thing about all this? That many women who want to be saved by the beast end up destroyed by him, because what begins as fascination many times ends in ruin, but they still come back. Because logic doesn't govern desire, and the heart doesn't learn from advice, but from scars. And you, meanwhile, could be there, waiting for the day they realize you were the one, that it was you who would have cared for them, loved them, protected them. But you know what? That realization never comes, because in their internal narrative, you were never part of the main story. You were a footnote, the just in case, the emotional plan B. So, what do you do with that? Do you break? Do you sink? Do you become what you hate? Number you rebuild, but not as a fake macho, not as an empty copy of the one who hurts, but as a new man. One who has understood that power isn't in making them like you, but in not needing them. Ask yourself this brutal question. Are you willing to be yourself, even if that means walking alone for a while? Because the beast isn't adored for his beauty. He is feared for his independence. Because he doesn't beg, he doesn't sell himself, he doesn't betray himself. And that is what drags them in, because while you give explanations, he gives direction. While you ask, does it bother you if? He simply acts. And he doesn't do it to impose himself. He does it because he doesn't need permission to exist. So wake up! Stop seeing your sensitivity as a virtue if you can't control it. Stop giving your energy to those who don't know how to value it. And, above all, stop getting down on your knees emotionally hoping someone will lift you up. The beast they chase wasn't born a beast. He was a man who was betrayed, ignored, emotionally buried, until he stopped wanting to please, until he understood that if he can't be the fire, then he will be the ice. But he will never again be anyone's emotional ashtray. And if you've made it this far, to this exact part of the video, then you're no longer the same as when you started. Something has shifted inside you. You feel it, even if you can't name it yet. It's that contained rage, that badly digested frustration, that whisper at the back of your mind telling you, enough. And when a man says enough, the world trembles. Because a man who has understood who he is, what he's worth, and what he will no longer tolerate, is more dangerous than any beast. Don't be the observer of your story any longer. Be the author. Redefine your role. Erase the narrative they imposed on you and write yours with blood, sweat, and truth. Because only when you accept that you owe them nothing do you start attracting everything. Now, I want you to do something. If this truth has touched something inside you, if you felt that this video was for you, make it clear in the comments. Write this phrase, I don't beg, I choose. I want to see how many are awake, how many have crossed the line, how many have stopped asking for permission to start imposing presence. And if you want more content to ignite your mind and break the chains you've carried for years, subscribe now. This channel isn't for everyone. It's for those who are already tired of living as chess pieces on someone else's board. Subscribe, comment, and remember this. Sometimes the most dangerous man isn't the one who roars. It's the one who learned to stay silent, because the silence of an awake man is worth more than 1,000 words from a sleeping one. See you in the next video. Or not. Because some never come back after opening their eyes. Until then, stay wild. Stay free. Stay beast.